Are you ready to ditch the myths and embrace the facts about fitness after 40? Stick around. We might have something for you today. Hey guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Twain.
In this podcast, we go beyond the fads and delve into the science behind sustainable weight loss and fitness for the 40 plus crowd. We bring you expert insights on exercise, nutrition, and healthy habits, empowering you to make informed choices and create a personalized plan for success. It's time to silence the doubts with data and unlock your true potential, both physically and mentally. How are you doing today, Twain?
I am very good. That was a great intro, man.
Getting better, right?
We're
Getting
getting
better.
better. Every time we're getting better. 1%
Hopefully,
better every time. That's
hopefully one day we'll sound like an actual podcast.
yeah. Well, I mean, but if anything, whoever's listening to this, like it's gonna be real, you know? This is the reality behind the podcast.
That's
Yeah.
true. All
But what,
right.
what, what are we gonna talk about today?
Today I want to talk about something that's probably on everybody's mind. Well, by everybody I mean me, and that's this
Okay.
concept of strength training.
Okay.
I,
Yeah.
I find there's a lot of misconceptions on what strength training really is.
Hmm.
There's a lot of shall we call them myths of what people believe about strength training,
Mm.
and I thought we could also maybe just look over a very brief way of how we supposed what's the right way of putting together a strength program when
Okay.
you're out in the gym rather than focusing on our ego lifting.
Mm.
We use a bit of IQ with regards to constituting these programs. So I thought we have a bit of a chat about that today. So we start off with basically let's look at the understanding and the importance of strength training for everybody, that especially in this case that we're talking about people over the age of 40. But
Yep.
like, what role does strength training really play? Is it just that, like, oh, I want to be strong, which is not really the truth, but perhaps you can uh, expand
I'm
upon that.
assuming that was your Arnold impression.
My terrible one, that is. I'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back. But yeah. I mean, like strength training is great. You know, it is. If I had to like really hype it up, I would honestly say have strength training is like the fountain of youth. It's like the one thing that if you do it right in the correct dose and you keep consistently doing it, it's the one thing that can literally keep your body almost from aging too quickly. In fact, it can sometimes reverse age people that start pretty late. I've had clients that were like 60 when they started their first strength, lifted their first weight. And then by the time they are 63, 64, they're actually way fitter, way better, leaner, lighter, more mobile, and stronger than they were even when they were 40 or 50, to be honest. In fact, my dad's a perfect example of this. I'm not sure if you've ever seen my dad.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, I have.
I mean, you've seen some of
Yeah.
the photos post up about him on my stories from time to time. That dude is currently 74 years old, but he's able to crank out like 20 pull-ups in a row. He's
Wow.
jacked. Like every time I see him, he seems younger and more jacked. You know,
Wow.
and, and at an age where most people would think, oh, especially for guys, my testosterone is all decreased. It's impossible to build muscle, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. He is still holding a very, very good physique that I think even somebody in their 30s would be envious of.
Wow.
So it is so important. Like strength training is all about keeping your body's ability to perform, to function. That's really the purpose of strength training. You're just providing a consistent stimulus to it so that your body does not age as fast. It's one of those cases where I think the best way to sum it up is if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So preserving muscle, preserving your tendon strength, the joint strength, preserving all these healthy tissues is very important in aging because these things break down faster when we don't do anything to preserve them, especially as we age.
Is there is there a difference between strength training and bodybuilding?
Oh, well, I was actually assuming that I mean for everybody that's listening, right? When we talk about strength training, we're talking about lifting weights, with the specific idea of like building muscle, right? And so in that way, it's actually synonymous with bodybuilding. If you wanted to get really technical, most like if you ask any kind of exercise scientist or somebody that is, maybe a PT or so, they probably will tell you strength training is all about like more geared towards like how strong can you get in that sense of like maybe even going more specifically towards powerlifting. But look, like for our purposes, the general public knows strength training as like, oh, lifting weights. And so I think it's just okay. Like while it might not be the most technical term, I would say strength training, bodybuilding, all of these are synonymous with the same thing that you want to preserve your muscle mass. Yeah. And that's you're going to lift some weights, you're going to provide some resistance to them in order to do that. So probably let's go with that premise. I'm going to assume that's how we're talking about strength training, okay?
Okay. I think just going on building on what you said there is that yes, you're maintaining muscle mass, but another benefit I find with regards to strength training is bone density.
Oh yes. Very, very important as
As you get
well.
older, it's very important to have good bone density. And by lifting weights and putting that resistance on your body each time, that helps to actually develop more bone density. And in many cases, it helps to either prevent or alleviate things like osteoporosis and all these kind of things as you get older.
Yeah. In fact, for that's the reality for a lot of old folks. I forgot the actual statistic for this, but like a large majority of old folk cases where they end up, bedridden and stuff, all originate from them falling, breaking their hip, and breaking the hip when you're old is one of the, it's terrible, because suddenly you can't walk, you can't move, you can't do anything, you're bedridden, and then the road to recovery is very, very long, especially when you're at that age and you don't have any prior base, any prior musculature in the first place to help with the healing process. In fact, the more like muscle you can preserve, you actually make your body so much more resilient so that whatever happens to you, you have this actual buffer. It's almost like a literal, if you can think about it, it's almost like a literal body of armor in that sense, right? So yeah, the strength training itself, lifting weights, increases or maintains your bone density to a very large degree, especially as we get older.
Mm. And then the other benefit that I also get from myself is that especially when you're doing things like squats or
Mm.
deadlifts or the bit of a heavier weights that you're shifting, I find it's actually quite beneficial for cardiovascular as well.
Uh, yeah. I think this one here, there's a little bit more of a technical difference there. Like you could squat and it would challenge your breathing to a large degree. But it's not quite the same as training like a cardio, like an actual cardio exercise. Mainly because number one, you would be limited mostly by the reason why you're losing that what you call that? You're getting breathless is mainly because you're limited by like the oxygen uptake of your muscles once you get into that higher rep range. Yeah, and mostly you're just limited by your muscles themselves just getting really tired, rather than your actual cardio being trained in this instance.
Because when I work out, I wear the heart rate monitor,
Yeah.
and I was actually quite surprised to see how high the heart rate can go sometimes during some
Oh
of the
yeah, yeah,
workouts. Yeah.
for sure. But again, the reason why the heart rate goes up high is not like the quality or the way you achieve that high heart rate matters as well. So it's not just a high heart rate that matters for cardio. There was a bit more of a technical aspect when it's relating to cardio. Yeah.
Perhaps
Just
we can
wait,
do in
no,
another
because
episode.
yeah, we probably will talk about that in another episode. But I think just a quick analogy here, it's like if heart rate was all that mattered, then you could get a very good cardio workout just by being scared all the time. So what's a horror
Fair
movie,
enough.
right? Yeah.
Maybe I
So
do.
maybe, I don't know. But yeah, like, it's not just about the heart rate in that sense.
Okay. So looking at the importance of it, we've basically said it helps you to preserve muscle mass, helps you to preserve bone density or even build bone density if you've not done it before. These are things that really help as you get older because muscle mass, I mean, I'm not sure if you mentioned it earlier, is that after the age of 40, you actually start losing your muscle mass. And I think
Mm.
the statistics were something like 1% per year that you actually lose of your muscle mass. So when you come in, you're speaking about the older people falling like that. This is obviously due to all of that. What is it called? Sarcopenia or something?
Yeah. It's called sarcopenia.
Yeah, sarcopenia. And that is where you're losing this muscle mass every year. So by actually implementing strength training, it helps you to preserve that. These are very good benefits. But then the problem that we have with all of these, and this is the conversations that I usually have with people, is that while some people understand the benefits and can see it, they're scared to actually implement it due to things like, where people say, oh, I don't want to do strength training because I don't want to be too bulky.
Yeah.
This goes across board. Where we used to hear it most of the time from women, I find I hear it from a lot of guys these days as well. I mean,
Yeah.
is this from your experience too, or?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I deal with a lot of women. I mean, men and women for sure, but like with one of my major programs being training women in the program, a lot of them don't want to get bulky, right? And the truth is that um it's actually valid in the sense that we have to understand what is bulky to people. And so if we can define, like, for most people, what their ideal bulky is, like looking like a, let's say, a female bodybuilder, or even not even a bodybuilder, maybe like the CrossFit athlete, one of those really like bulked up ladies, that are very athletic and have bigger muscles than normal, and you see them lifting, doing a lot of weights and stuff. Then if that's bulky, I can understand people not wanting to achieve that if that's not their goal. But the truth is that getting bulky with muscle is really challenging. And so if you are already controlling what your intake is, and you're not eating in a large surplus, you're not eating like too many calories, such that you're actually gaining weight, it's very, very hard for you to actually get bulky. Yeah,
Yeah.
because your body needs to actually build the muscle from something in the first place. So if you and most people will do strength training in conjunction with trying to diet down for fat loss. So if you're doing these two things together, you're not giving your body enough food, it's honestly really hard to gain any appreciable muscle or size. And your body has a natural limit, right? Your body already has a natural limit. So yeah, unless you're blessed with genetics that where you can just look at the dumbbell and somehow you grow, then I hate you, man. Like, give me some of those genetics. Because look, I just to give you context here, right? Like, I train. I like 6 times in a week, for the most part, trying my best to gain as much muscle as possible, and I am struggling. I'm eating as much as possible. Trying to gain as much as possible, and I am struggling to put on even like additional half a kilogram of muscle. So it's not so easy. It's really not that easy.
I always find it interesting though when people come and they point out, it's like, when you say it's okay, one of the things, if you really want to lose weight or you want to be more healthy, go and do strength training, right? And then the
Yeah.
comeback is usually like, oh, I don't want to do strength training because it's going to make me bulky. And it's like,
Yeah.
really? And I'm in 100% agreement with what you're saying. Is my comeback to them is always is okay, but what is your nutrition like and what is your genetics like? Because these are the two things that really play a big
Yeah.
part. And then they'll usually reference, and it's a very good example, some CrossFitter, because we are looking at whatever video or whatever. It's like, oh, I don't want to look like that. Then my question is like, do you know how much that person is actually eating?
Yeah.
They're probably
Yeah.
eating 3 to 4 times the amount that you're actually eating.
It's not even just the eating part as well, right? It's like, how much are they actually training?
Yeah, that too.
Like, how much are they actually exercising? How much of their time and their life have they dedicated to this? And it's not fair to compare yourself. You should not compare yourself against somebody whose main job is to, let's say, be in that particular sport as a professional. Or
That's
even if
right.
they're doing it as a hobby, but to compete at that level, they need to be training and dedicating a large portion of their life, right? So most people are not in that same category at all. Like, you should not even consider that. Like, if that happens, then all you have to do is train lesser. Easy. But the likelihood of you asking this question means that you are not even in the shape yet, right? So
You're in
it's
A
unlikely
shape, but not the shape.
not the shape that you want. I think the analogy I like to give people is, like, I usually ask them, what is the thing that, like, what's your job, for example. So somebody tells me, oh, I am a like, here's the best one. I had a doctor. Okay. They were specializing in, was he a nephrologist or something, like kidney? I think kidney. He was probably a nephrologist. if I remember correctly. So we were talking about this, and he himself, being a doctor, understanding like some of the basics of science, he himself still falls for this. So it's not something that it's about intelligence per se, it's about understanding like the perspective of it, right? And so he was saying like, I'm very scared of getting like too big because I can't, I don't really want to get too big. That's not my goal. And then I asked him about his work. I said, look, how much time do you dedicate to specialize in your current specialty? Oh, I dedicate how many years, oh, there are all these long like trainings we have to do. It was tough. Or you go through all that, right? I say, okay, cool. What would you say to somebody if I said like, oh, I don't want to become too good at being a kidney specialist. I just want to understand a little bit about kidneys, right? And then she was like, oh yeah, like you won't just become good at that just by reading a Google article, right? You won't just become good just
What?
by Googling it and looking through Wikipedia and saying like, oh, I'm ready, you're ready to do surgery already. No, you
Yeah.
actually have to put the time in. You have to spend all that time and really fight against other people in the same specialty to make it as a surgeon in this path. The same thing, right? You are somebody that's a finance person. It's like, oh, saying that you don't want to get too big. It's like a finance person saying, oh, I don't want to earn too much money. I'm scared. I'm scared of actually going to work because I'm scared of earning too much money. Like, think about it from that perspective. That's ridiculous, right? So it's the same thing applies. Just lifting a weight's not going to make you into Ronnie Coleman, or any, yeah,
Yeah. Well,
any other pro
imagine.
bodybuilder, CrossFitter.
Well, talking about like Ronnie Coleman and the CrossFitters and all that, the other thing
Yeah.
that I usually get from people is that strength training is only for young individuals or for athletes.
Hmm. That's yeah, I guess maybe a lot of people think about it that way. Just because do you suppose it's maybe because like whatever videos we see are usually people that are already in shape lifting for the most part? That's the most popular thing, right? Because that's exciting to see.
Yeah, I think it's that the shape that they're in, but I think it's also usually the videos we watch are very high intensity, very high level lifting. They don't
Yeah,
focus on the everyday lifter that's actually lifting for health and functional fitness.
yeah. Because let's face it, that's boring.
That's
That's,
true.
that's boring as hell, right? Because the truth is it's not exciting, but the reality is that strength training itself is so scalable. That's the best part about it. It's like it's the only activity where I can honestly say you can scale it up or down depending on like anybody can do it because you can scale it to their fitness level. Like say you can talk about running. There's some people that just can't run just because their knees are completely like screwed up, right? If it's completely screwed up, like
Yep.
you can't run. Even if I give you intro level running, you can't run, right? It's just gonna fuck it up. So so I would say strength training is one thing you could really scale up or down. So if you're past 40, if you feel like, oh, I got all these back pains and stuff like this, you know, you can scale all the exercises to some form or another. If you can't do full push-ups on the floor, you can do them on the incline, right? Against the table. If even the table's too much for you, do it against the wall. It's so easy to do. Like this is literally what they teach all the senior folks to get them moving, literally standing up and sitting down from a chair. That's strength training for that particular person at that fitness level and that state. And then from there, once they can do that, we give them something to hold on to, and then they stand up and down from the chair. Now that's weighted squats already. So strength training is so easy and applicable to any situation, any fitness level. It really is.
And I think it's great that you mentioned that because that's probably another issue that we sit with, right? Is that,
Hmm.
and I think we touched on this in our previous podcast. If you haven't listened to that, you can jump to the previous one and have a listen. Is that it's meeting people at the level that they are. So, like
Hmm.
we were giving the analogy of a staircase last time. That
Yes.
you have the different steps all the way up to reaching your goal. And so if you are at the first step, your abilities and your circumstances are putting you at the first step, but you punch in on Google now for workouts for people, to build a bigger chest. Then it's producing a workout here for a person who's actually on step 5. And
Hmm.
so you now go in and you're starting to try and perform these exercises from this level 5, but you're only a
Yeah.
level 1. It's a natural thing that you're going to have a dropout in this
100%,
thing.
man. 100%.
But meeting people at their level, at their circumstance, I mean, this helps to really build, because then it's like you give the example there of the old people. That's building the ligaments and building the muscle fibers that have probably been dormant or regressing over the years, and now it's sparking them and giving them new life.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like getting that effective minimum that they need, right? Because again, the level 5 is not going to work for the level 1. Like it's overkill, you know? Yeah. If you had a fly to swat in the house, would you use a fly swatter
Or a
or would
cannon.
you use a gun? You know? You don't even need a cannon. Like, would you use a gun? Like, even a gun is overkill already, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. So use the fly swatter and deal with the fly first, right?
that's right.
So um it's funny, man.
Oh, that also leads into the other myth that I also hear a lot, is that strength training is dangerous and it only leads to injuries.
Oh, this one's actually really cool because if for those of you who don't know, I actually started out with quite a big base in rehab. So that's kind of where my uh training starting point actually started from. So I was training to do like sports massage stuff and doing like rehab for people. And what I was taught and what I've learned over the years has actually kind of evolved quite a bit. We used to think a lot about it from the perspective of doing strength training and then subjecting yourself to like very poor form is what kind of causes injuries. And I think that's one component of it. Like if you don't do things with the best form, your injury risk goes up. But does it actually cause that many injuries? Not quite, depending on a few context points. And the main context point is this. What is the weight that you are carrying? Is it actually something within your ability to control? Is it something which like your current readiness level, have you been very, very tired out, over all the previous training sessions? All these things actually have a bigger impact on the actual likelihood of you getting an injury. So in terms of form, while we are particular about like how the form should be done, there's actually some degree of flexibility with that. Meaning some people's form are just not going to look that great. But if you can manage like the amount of load that the person's lifting, you can manage the programming of it, right? Like making sure that you understand, okay, how ready are you to kind of push yourself, or if you're over pushed already, you're feeling a lot of fatigue, you're feeling very tired coming to a session, maybe you should pull back a little bit, things like this, regulating the load. You actually find that the injury component actually goes down quite a bit. And if you look at the stats for it, like something like powerlifting, the injury rate for powerlifting, and then again, powerlifting is the epitome of like strength training by definition, right? You're lifting the maximum weight that you can, okay? With your whole body, with all the muscles and everything, right? So you're lifting the max, so this out like that one end of the spectrum already. And the injury rate for powerlifting is like still less. It's like one of the sports that has the lowest injury rate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know what's one of the highest?
Running.
Done. Exactly. Right? And does that actually have any weights attached to it? No. You know?
Hmm.
So a lot of it, like in terms of strength training causing injuries, I would say it's not very true at all. Just like from the data from the science itself and what we understand about like rehab and we understand about injuries, how they kind of come about.
And it's interesting because like how you're pointing it out from the rehab perspective there is that, as you're doing strength training, you're actually strengthening all the different aspects of the body too. Like we always think it's like, okay, we're going to build a bigger bicep. But actually there's all the tendons and ligaments that are involved in that movement as well in order to do, let's say, a bicep curl.
Yeah.
And all of those are also getting strengthened as you go through the activity.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you give it the correct, again, what's the purpose of strength training? You're just stimulating the body to recognize that the muscles recognize that there's this stress to it so that it can actually adapt and grow stronger. But if you go overkill, you go level 5 when you're only at level 1, you create so much stimulus that your body's not actually able to even adapt to that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really kind of finding that sweet spot in that sense.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing that people actually say is that, you know, a large amount of people that we actually discuss these kind of things with, especially in your 40s and plus, is people that are looking to lose weight.
Yes.
And in our general conditioning that we're taught over the years is that if you want to lose weight, one of the things you need to go do is high intensity workouts, like cardio. Go and do a lot of cardio, because that is a more effective strategy for weight loss than, say, strength training. What are your
Yep.
thoughts on that?
I think if weight loss is your main goal, like purely just the weight loss component alone, okay, you would be better off, first of all, focusing on your nutrition, right? Like 100% you have to focus on nutrition. You could do all the exercise in the world, be it strength training or cardio,
Yep.
but if you're overeating, you're never going to lose weight. First thing. But that being said, between strength training and cardio is actually more effective at burning calories than strength training is during the activity, during the exercise itself. So for that purpose, if you're just focused only on weight loss, yeah, you probably could do a lot more cardio and get some result. Now, the reason why I had to qualify this by saying if you're focused on the weight loss part alone, okay, the reason why I qualify that is because most people don't just want to lose weight, they actually want to keep the weight off. Right? So if you're concerned with the keep weight off part, that's where strength training comes in. While strength training is not great and it's not the purpose, its purpose is not to help you burn calories. But strength training is great for helping you build up your body and increasing that capacity for your body to burn more. Yeah. And that in that way, it actually makes the weight maintenance part that much easier. In fact, the more muscle you have, the more your body needs, right? Because the more muscle you have, the more likely you are to be active as well. So combining the fact that your engine is now burning more and you are also moving around a lot more, you end up just naturally having a higher calorie intake, higher calorie requirement, which would mean that you could eat more, you could still continue to keep the weight off, which is essentially what most people want. So if you want to maintain that weight loss, you want to make sure that you are doing your strength training. Yeah.
In a similar way of what you explained, as mine is when people talk to me about that, I always
Yep.
ask them, what is your goal?
Mm.
And if your goal is that I need to lose the weight by 1 to 2 months, then I
Mm.
usually say, okay, go ahead with the cardio. But if your goal is that you need to lose the weight and sustain the weight loss and have a healthier living going forward and creating a healthier lifestyle, then it's like, how can you not add strength training into the mix?
Yeah.
But then with strength training, right? I mean, another thing that people always complain about is that strength training always requires very expensive equipment or gym memberships.
Mm. Yeah, I guess that's something that I've heard a couple times before. Yeah. But I mean I don't know. I mean like when you were getting back into your strength training, like what do you feel about that? How easy was it for you to get back in?
Well, it depends on what you mean by easy, because it was not easy for my body. But when I first started out, I started out with the basics. I did body weight stuff like push-ups and body weight squats, body lunges. And then I would go to the park and try and do some pull-ups. Not very successfully, but it's in the striving where you build the character. Um, so
And also,
I
I mean, like, look, like just trying to get it done or so, like, that would have built up your strength as well, you know?
Yeah. So I focused on all of those, and basically I didn't need anything at that time. So that's building a little bit of functional strength, because that's, again, it's meeting you at level one, right? At the bottom of the staircase. Because you had to come back and you had to, once you got the humility, it's like, hey, I don't have the body of my 20-year-old. You
Yeah.
get that humility again. You're like, okay, let's start back at one. And so starting back at one is building up that functional strength again. Once you get that, you start to plateau. You start seeing, okay, I'm not seeing the results here anymore. Okay, I need to add more weight. Then, yes, I found, okay, now I probably need to go and either get myself some dumbbells or I need to join a gym.
Yeah.
Now, I find as well, when you're looking at a strength program, is you can very effectively build a strength program with just a set of dumbbells and a bench. You don't
100%.
have to go and join a gym. I mean, it's more beneficial for me, from my perspective, to join the gym. but you don't need it. You can just get a set of dumbbells and you can work through with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think I agree with you 100% on that. Like, especially for most people who are listening to this, if cost is your main concern, like you need to buy extra equipment, all this sort of stuff, and you haven't been exercising at all, trust me, just some body weight stuff is going to be good enough, you know? But that being said, I would say also you don't actually need a whole ton of equipment, right? If you're trying to train at home, like you said, a pair of dumbbells, an adjustable bench, you've got like 70% of exercises that you can that covered already. You can easily do and cover every part of your body just with those two pieces of equipment alone. You've unlocked a whole array of exercises to do. So so that itself will be quite a great investment, right? Because a pair of dumbbells, what's it going to run you? How a pair of bench, adjustable bench, these two things together, maybe $500, maybe $600, right? A bit hefty up front, but let's say you amortize it over years, right? Like how much is that really going to cost you? And then let's say
Sure.
we talk about gym membership. At the end of the day, what do you go to the gym for? You just need to go there, use all the machines, correct? So most of the time, gym memberships are actually relatively cheap if you go to like a commercial gym. I know back in Singapore, there are like club community gyms where I think you pay like 150 or 250 per entry.
Sure.
It's relatively cheap. You can get like a really cheap monthly on that. But let's say if you don't want to go to like maybe you want to go to something a little bit more upmarket, even an anytime fitness membership, things like this, it might cost you $100 a month, $130 a month.
Mm.
Okay, if you're listening to this, you probably have that level of disposable income that maybe $130 a month is not too difficult for you to commit to. But at the same time, but one perspective I can give you is this. If the $130 a month is the only thing that's keeping you from going to the gym and getting your exercise in, then if you flip it around, it means that if I pay you $130 a month, you're happy to stay exactly the way you are. That's the cost of it for you, essentially, right? Because that's your limit. So you're happy, like, think about it for a second, right? Are you happy with where you're at right now? Are you okay with where your health is, how you're feeling, how when you look in the mirror, how you look at yourself, things like this, your confidence. If you have a certain specific health goal, I reckon you're not comfortable or happy with where you're at. And if you only look at it from a cost perspective, you flip it around and say, like, if somebody were to pay me $130 to stay this way every month, is it worth it to me? I would say hell no, right? Like if somebody would pay me like $1 billion a month, yeah, sure. You know, I do that for a month, and then after that I get right back into it. I collect my $1 billion payout, and then I live my life happily, right? Being healthy and doing whatever I want. So, if I think it takes a bit of reframing to understand, like, while some of these things might be costs, some costs are worth a lot more because you get a lot more back, provided you do use it. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I think it matters a lot for you to really look at what do you want to achieve when the subject of cost comes up. Yeah.
Yeah. When I look at cost nowadays, I always look at it and I say, in comparison to going and eating out.
Mm.
So I'll look at it and I'll say, okay, let's say the gym membership is say $160, right? Which I think it is in my case. I have to look again. But then I'm like, wow, $160 is a lot. But then I go for a meal at Heidi Lao, and Heidi Lao, one meal, I spend $250.
Oof, yeah.
And it's like walk away. Oh, I'm so good, so happy, happy, happy. But then at the end of the day, that's it. That $250 is gone. I can't go back for the whole month and eat at Heidi Lao a meal each day, but I can do that at the gym. So I start to look at it. Okay, so $160 might be a lot of money, but in the comparison of things, yeah, it's not. It's actually very little,
Yeah.
and so that helps me to frame it into the right perspective. Well,
Yeah.
into the perspective that
100%
helps
agree
me,
with
shall I
you.
say?
100% agree with you.
And I think another one, then leading with this one that just going on, is that strength training is usually time consuming or requires very long workouts.
Mm.
That's another myth that I seem to get from quite a few people.
Uh, I would say that's definitely not true. I have so many clients that have proven this exactly. Again, it depends on your fitness level, really. But even for my relatively fit clients, a lot of them aren't training anything more than like 3 times a week, um, at about 45 minutes each time. Because at the average level, to get to no, sorry, not average level, but at a level where you want to get to just above average, if you know how to structure your strength training and you're applying the correct effort, 45 minutes 3 times a week is actually quite a good um amount of time that you need to be able to achieve that already. Of course, we have to define what's above average and all this kind of stuff. But again, look, the people that we generally deal with are people that are either trying to get into fitness, coming from zero, or they have some general fitness and they're trying to just get a bit better, right? So you don't need a ton of time, honestly. You really don't. If you are like me and you're somebody that's trying to do competitive bodybuilding, maybe that might change, that will be different because I need a certain level of volume to various body parts to hit in order for it to grow. But that's because also I've been training for like, I don't know how long I've been training already. I've been training since I was 14 or 13 or whatever, right? And
For
that's like
7
20
years,
plus.
is it?
No, that's 20 odd years ago. I wish that means I only 21 right now. So, but so you don't have to, you don't even need that much time to really get results. And the best part is that once you get certain results that you're comfortable with, you actually need like half of that just to maintain it. That's the best part. Like once you hit a level that you're comfortable with, you don't actually need to do a lot to maintain it. You just need to do something for sure, yeah. But then you can free up the rest of that time to go and pursue other activities. Because for most people, let's be real, for most people, strength training is not the end thing in and of itself. I mean, if you like it, if you love it, by all means, I'm with you because that's me also. But most people use it as a vessel to something else, to get you in shape to do some other activity that you love. It could be rock climbing, it could be hiking a lot more, it could be playing a sport that you love, soccer, whatever it is, basketball, I don't know, paddling, swimming, whatever it is, right? Like whatever sport you choose to play or whatever activity you choose to pursue. That's what strength training is. And then once you hit the level where you've gotten into good shape, you're light enough, you're lean enough, you can really move your body better, the level of maintenance required is very, very low. So it's like 1 session a week, maybe, of strength training and then playing your sport. And that's it. There's a perfect balance there.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I hear the people talk about this one, is my mind always goes to like, okay, what kind of workouts are you doing? And generally, when I have the discussion with a person, it's like, oh yeah, I went to the internet and I typed in this build a chest for summer, and then it's like, oh, it's Ronnie Coleman's you know sculpted chest kind of thing. So of
Well,
course,
yeah,
these
it'll
kind
tell
of
you
workouts, yeah,
like what, do 5, 6 chest exercises, 4 sets of 10 or 12 each or something of that nature, right?
correct.
I'm sure
And
it's
for
something
the
crazy like this.
average person, who's just actually doing it for functional fitness or for health reasons,
Yeah.
it's not really tailored for that. And so of course you're going there and you're spending long periods of time, but the reason for that is you're doing a program for a person who's specialized in that particular thing, and he's got all the time in the world to go and do it. And I think this is where the importance of getting an actual trainer, somebody that knows what they're doing, to consult with you with regards to putting together a program, because they take into account the circumstances in your life. Like I know when I got my program done with Twain last time, one of the things he asked is, how much time do you have to spend in the gym? And at
Yeah.
that time, I think I told you when I first started was, well, I only have 20 minutes. And
Yep.
so the program is then tailored to maximize that 20 minutes in the gym. And I
Yeah.
can tell you that 20 minutes, it felt like 2 hours, when you're working through the actual workout, because everything was being hit as it should be. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure if any of you guys are interested in this kind of thing, you could always go to Twain's website at fitforlife.io, and you can see what he has to offer over there. But it does show the importance of engaging with a trainer who understands this kind of setup, understands like, okay, you're a person that's a bit older in years, and you also have less time to actually commit to putting into the gym. And so
Yeah.
that kind of thing is like, I find it's very important in this kind of thing, especially now as I've gotten older, is time is a commodity. It's no
Yeah.
longer just something you can play with, but it's something you need to prioritize.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I thought maybe Jack, before we wrap up, yeah, kind of thing, we could just run through like maybe give an avatar. I'm sure you can come up with one, and see how a person can actually put together a strength training program. I mean, just a basic one, and
Hmm.
but how they can envision and see like, okay, this is something I can implement and I can give it a go over the next week or so, and see how it goes.
Yeah. So I think what we'll do is, I think the large majority of people are going to be, number one, not being very active in the first place. Okay. So you're kind of starting from scratch. That's what I'm going to assume. Then the other thing is I'm going to assume that there's not enough time. And when I say not enough time, I mean like they can barely squeeze out maybe half an hour. Okay. Maybe 3 times a week. Because again, we go by that's the most standard plan that I find works for most people as a starting point. So if we are assuming these two things, then we know that because the fitness level is pretty low, all we need to do is focus on a few key basic things. And you don't have to do a lot of exercises for each one. You just need to try to cover everything, either within the sessions themselves or maybe across the sessions. So you're trying to do everything at least about twice a week. Yeah. So what I would suggest is this, because there are only a couple of basic movements we need to focus on. For one, oh, sorry, the last thing is I need to assume that you have no equipment at all, right? So no equipment at all. So the first thing I would say is the basic movements we need to cover is we need to do some sort of a squat movement. Okay, so what's a squat movement? Essentially is when you squat down and stand up. It could be something as simple as sitting down to your chair and standing up. So that's also a squat movement. Then the second thing we want to do is like kind of a what we call a hip hinge movement. Basically, this is where you kind of, imagine you're trying to bend down and pick something up, but you're pushing your butt back as you do it. So that would be like a hip hinge movement. So any kind of deadlift motion, that would be good. And then the other two would just be any kind of pushing motion. And the last one will be any kind of like a pulling motion. So the pushing motion means like, let's say, imagine you're trying to push against a wall, right? You can push very hard against a wall. That's kind of a pushing motion. And a pulling motion will be, let's say, if you're trying to do a pull up, where you're trying to pull yourself towards something. So how I would structure things, and I would assume that, let's say if you're going to do it at home, is you would start off with one day where you would do upper body stuff. The second day you would do lower body stuff, and the third day you would do uh full body. And in that way, you'll be covering everything twice throughout the week. And so in the upper body day, what will you need to do? You need to do something for that will allow you to push, something that will allow you to pull, and then you could and then you could add in some other core exercises as well. Same thing for the lower body day. You would do something that will get you squatting, something that will get you doing like a deadlift, and then you add in some core exercises as well. And then on the final day, you just do all four of these movements again, which is push, a pull, a squat, and a hip hinge, again, a deadlift. And so that way, it's a very simple setup. It'll take you no more than 20 to 30 minutes to do. And then you could easily do that, throughout the week. Okay, in terms of like sets and reps, so I'm assuming that everybody here kind of understands this concept. Sets is the number of rounds of the exercise that you do. Reps is the number of times you do the exercise. I think it's a good starting point for most people is just to do like something like 10 reps. Again, it's not a magic number, but it's just easy for people to do. Okay, so that's a good starting point. And then how many sets do you do? 3 times of each exercise, and you're good. So that's a very like easy template you can start with. Now, what are some exercises then you could do? So what's a pushing exercise? Push-ups on the floor. If you need to do some sort of regression, do it on a table, bring it up higher, and that will make it easier, right? Do it against the wall. You can do it that way as well. So that will be a push movement. What's a pull movement? A pull movement, this one can get a bit tricky when you're doing things at home. But what I would suggest is you can either fill out like a little duffel bag or you'll use like a travel luggage or something, grab the sides, put some books in there, use that as a weight, and then you pull that to yourself. So you bend over and you pull that to yourself. So it's like a bend over row. If you want to Google that, just Google bend over dumbbell rows, and then you kind of see how it looks like. And you just imagine the dumbbell is like your luggage. So that's a really easy one to do. Yeah. And then for a squat pattern, simple one, body weight squat. So just literally from a standing position, squat down and stand back up, go as low as you can. That's an easy one to do as well. And then for the deadlift motion, what I like to teach people to do, because most people don't actually have like a proper deadlift, like enough weight to kind of do a proper deadlift at home. We usually do what we call a single leg deadlift. Okay, if I were to simplify this motion, just think about it this way: stand on one foot and try to reach down and touch your toe. And think about pushing your butt back as you do that. So it's really simple. Like if you can just pause this podcast right now, you stand up and you try that out, you'll understand what I mean. So do that 10 times and try not to fall. Right? That's a great exercise to do. So you could do all these. So this will be 4 examples of the exercises. And then for the core exercises, simple things like doing planks, doing side planks, doing sit-ups, regular sit-ups. I don't care what you've seen where people tell you, oh, sit-ups are destroying your back, oh, sit-ups are bad for your back, whatever. Trust me, it's not. Okay, your back will be fine. Regular sit-ups, doing planks, doing side planks, doing some leg raises. These 4 options are very, very good to do already. Now, if you have more equipment, if you have dumbbells, you have all these other stuff, then there's a lot more exercise you could work from. But right now, I'm just assuming that everybody is like, having no real equipment. You're just going to use whatever's around the house. And again, cost is 0, easy to do, takes you 20 or 30 minutes. You can't go wrong.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those, I can vouch for some of those exercises. They're not as easy as what it was rolling off his tongue. It's not as easy to perform,
It's
but
simple.
they're
It's not.
very effective.
Yeah, it's simple. The idea is to keep things simple, right? Like so you can actually do them.
Yeah.
And look, like if whoever's listening to this right now, if you're listening to this and you have a lot more questions, I mean, by all means, drop them in the. Are there comments here under the podcast box? I'm not sure if there
I'm
are
actually
comments.
not sure. I'll have to take a look.
Okay, depending on where you're going to
Yeah.
listen to this, maybe there might be comments that you can drop it there. If you don't, again, like Mike said, you can head over to like fitforlife.io. That's the website. You can drop in your contact details, kind of reach out to us. We could do a quick little consult, help you build out your own program within 30 minutes. We do that for free. Like that's a complimentary thing, just so that we can kind of understand people better. And then, yeah, I think those are the best ways to kind of reach out, right?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah. I'm
Because I
not sure
mean,
if
I can't say enough about the difference that it makes when you actually work with somebody that understands your circumstances rather than giving cookie cutter workouts and
yeah, for sure.
trying to implement this in your busy days.
Sure.
So it's very important. And I think like when it comes to strength training as a whole, is that you really start to see the benefits of the strength training when you're working with somebody that actually understands how to implement it into your circumstances. Because other than that, I find like the myths that the people are saying generally I find come true to various degrees when you're doing it by yourself without any understanding.
Okay.
From my experience, that is, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where, look, like everybody knows what they need to do, right? Okay, maybe not exactly what they need to do, right? But like generally people know they need to move more, they need to eat less. So the magic is not in the knowing, it's
Yeah.
actually in the how do you apply it to your life part.
Yeah.
And that's where like if you have the knowledge and if okay, first of all, if you have the education to do it, you could do it for yourself. But the reality is also like number one, most people are not well versed in the subject matter in the first place, right? And the second part to it is that it's going to take up mental bandwidth. So sometimes it's just much cheaper to outsource it. I'll be honest with you guys, like even though I'm a coach, I've been doing this for 15 years already. I've been helping people with all this. I myself have a coach that programs my training for me. And the main reason why I do that is because then I can get out of my own head and allow somebody else that I trust to help me dictate what I need to do. Yeah. So that really helps. Like it's not about what the knowledge itself, to be honest. A lot of times it's just about the accountability and having somebody like take that mental stress off you of having to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with that, and I can fully support that too. Because oftentimes you get caught up in your own thoughts and mind, and end of the day that ends up limiting yourself because you're thinking, okay, this is what I need to do, this is what I can do, rather than
Yeah.
somebody who's looking at it objectively and stating like, no, actually, yeah, you can do more than this, and this is
That's actually
something.
really true, you know. That's actually really true because like for myself, again, just to quickly talk about that part, which
Yeah.
is why we have a coach, is because sometimes we get in our own heads and we know what we like and what we dislike. Like I know I hate Bulgarian split squats. You
Don't
know,
we
I
all?
don't want to do them. But my coach knows that I have to do them in order for me to gain, my, bring up my glutes and stuff like this.
Yeah.
So he programs them in, and I tell him, hey, you know what? I don't really enjoy these. He's like, I don't enjoy these too, but look, what's your goal? What are you serious about, right? What do you want to achieve? I'm like, oh, yeah, you're totally right, and then I go and do it. Sometimes you just need somebody to tell you. If you
That's
leave
true.
it up to yourself, you're not likely to actually follow through on it.
That's true, because you end up sitting into your comfort zone.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
Okay, wonderful. I think we've covered most of the things with regards to what we wanted to chat about today, with regards to strength training. If it, as Twain says, if anybody has any questions or anything they want to know, they can always drop us somehow. We'll find out how, but there should be a way to contact us, and we'll address any of those questions in future podcasts.
Yeah.
As always, thanks so much for joining, Twain.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's always good to chat.
We'll catch you in the next one.